And welcome. This is Pastor Tavo DRC, formerly known as TJ in the 80s before all the discovery of what needs to be taught, retaught, learned, and defragged of dysfunction. That is not everybody and everywhere, but it is major in our studies of the United States, mainly spirit-filled, talking, charismatic, affected by television. Now, most of us are affected by it, so nobody's going to be not have some kind of cross, including myself. I'm going to teach on submission. I'm going to teach on what it means from this perspective after great research, encountering submissionism, LP, Levitical Patriarch and Matriarch, Shepherding Movement, and the Wealth. And we are honoring the great parts of all the movements, but when it affects relationships, it is a character issue. I will discuss it and point out submitted Selah, not dogma, to let you hear God on it, compare it with the Bible. This is not autocrat. This is not legalistic. This is not Torah or Levitical patriotism or up in the hidey hole holler of the Mountain Williams School of Theology. All right. So, on behalf of all the people that are very respectful, well treated, so grateful for the great pastors, leaders, mothers, fathers of the present and past, even historic moves, even Levitical patriarch moves, because it can go from mild to extreme. So we're going to teach it and let you hear God for it. In cross-body unity, when it comes out of this person's mouth, the head founder, the head oracle of the office, the founder, as the Lord has given, we're going to say that in light of submissionism, the Phariseeism of control, the top dog, big boss, LP, that says our way or the highway, you've got to be under somebody, you've got to be covered. You little woman usually goes with that. Little person under us. Also, the sheep herding, the shepherding, that means we're watching to see who is not under our authority, who is not in a local church, who is not under a famous preacher, who is not submitted to our kind of controlling authority, authoritarian. So on behalf of these folk, which we respect, but in my opinion, my evaluation toward me, they've only been white, Caucasian, and yet all Caucasians are a spectrum like any African American, Hispanic, or Asian. They're all going to have different extremes, pockets, subcultures within that one kind. And I'm just telling what I believe for this new move of future church that would be very helpful, beneficial, and fair. I'm teaching snippets and writing them out from Adam and Eve in the garden because it deals with chain of command, understanding males and females back in the day. I've already done that. This is submission. Submission means, in our opinion, you defer somebody. You defer to somebody. If you are the head person, if you're the head person in your life, in your family, in your ministry, in your business, then when you go somebody else's house or ministry or church or cell group or business, you defer to them, you sit there, you're not over them, and you're in submission to the rules they have in place. The governing rules, you assess the boundaries, the leaders, and then you abide by them if they're true and fair and right, and then when you leave, you're back on your own turf. This is the official definition of that type of submission in the first church, Paul. First church, I asked ChatGPT in 2023, I always evaluate because I know basic history and know a lot of things. I also put my chat or my AI policy on top of TavoLeader.com, ins and outs of all that. This is basic history, not theology of interpretation. This is just objective clarification. So when we had that, I asked Chat GPT officially due to submissionites that bug the stew out of me by not speaking, by seeing me as type, cast, their possession, their property, and it's proud. It does not relate, it owns. It does not relate, it does not want to relate, it does not respect officially does not respect, wants to own, control, and target to get its way. Turf guarding. All right. So, in light of that teaching, strict. Also, it can involve subliminal, occult, praying against people. It is really off. So, on behalf of that, the good people that aren't aware of it, that need to know, that don't do it, or the ones that do, we're going to let you know. I asked ChatGPT AI in spring to summer of 2023, and I wrote it out. And I'm going to tell it again, write this out. I said, Chat, in First Church was the whole church after Jesus left, from the apostles, Paul, the elders, the leaders, the lay, and the married couples in wedded marriage, where they all serve a leader, Ephesians 5:21, which is mutual submission in the fear of the Lord. And it said yes. I asked it then, well, where did the authoritarians and the totalitarians come into the church? It answered back, the totalitarians, the authoritarians, there was none of those in the church until the influences of Rome and Greece got into the church. Culture, that is it. I would like to ask everyone to research and Google, Wikipedia, or somewhere, Roman patricianism. What is that? That is what we see in a lot of this aristocracy, unfairness, and Phariseeism of this modern age in Christianity. We're talking to the church. Church is all colors, but not the secular society. That's their choice, you know. So when you look at Roman patricianism, the patricians were 80 governing aristocratic rulers who owned slaves, who kept everything under control and either killed them, enslaved them, or kept the culture theirs, property, turf owning, about money. All right. When we look at the difference between going to church and slave owning, there should be none of that. When we go see fellowshipping with the saints, is Hebrews 10:25, is about God orchestrating it, calling people. The people hear God or don't go, and it's their choice to go, my opinion. Jesus Christ, you want to read him and see how he acted. Jesus Christ did not own slaves. Plus, I'm going to put this in, he was not a white colonial Caucasian, he lived in the Middle East. He was a Middle Easterner raised in the Jewish law and the culture, with Arabs, Africans, Asians all coming through the culture of slave owning from the Romans, but also the occult cultures of the Tamanic temple, like the Temple of Deborah and all, all these different ones out there. So he saw a lot. Now, we need to see a lot because we're similar in the age now that we have with divining in ministry, reading our minds, all this occult stuff that say they're prophets or Book of Acts. When I'm looking at logic and I'm looking at teaching and fundamental, not fundamentalism, but just fundamental basics of foundation, this is why we're doing it, to get people to be equally opportunity respected when they show up at a church, and the governing people know their Bible, and the people know their Bible, and if you read somebody, it's out of assessing them, out of evaluating for the fruit. And the abiding fruit would be the following: abiding fruit of the wisdom from above, which is James 3:17, which is pure, peaceable, easily entreated, full of mercy, and good fruit, without partiality, without hypocrisy. It would also be, I would advise all subcultures of Christian leaders and Christian teachers to read Jesus Christ in his relationships through the eyes of Jesus' relationships when he was alive in ministry in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, see how he acted and reacted, and we act the same. We're going to clear up a lot of this mess and mixture and dysfunction in the offices. All right. Next, let's go through, besides that, we want to teach on submission, right? So I asked ChatGPT AI, to be fair, I said, was there any kind of group after Jesus left the church and went to heaven after his victorious resurrection? Was there any one person or one group of kinds of ministers, leaders over the church, the whole church? He said no. So some of this false teaching says there are certain people that are over everybody in their area, they're over the gates of their city. That's usually that teaching, apostles in the gates of the city, or NAR maybe. We're for the people, but we're not for the false teaching. It is nothing but psychic, dominating, controlling, false, and off, and goes into witchcraft if they're not careful. Witchcraft. What is witchcraft? Charismatic witchcraft. It's false authority. It is not usually. It's not relating. It knows all. It doesn't have to speak because it's too knowledgeable. It's grown vain and off, and then you go from the Holy Spirit to the psychic, mind reading, toying with people, putting them on a witch list, word cursing because you never spoke to them. It is evil. It's sin. Right? So we have a lot of false teaching just in authority. Why am I teaching on it? Because my Bible tells me in two scriptures. One is Psalm 144. It says, beware of the strange children. Read that whole psalm by David. Beware of the strange children. Keep your children away from the strange children. You will not prosper if you are around the strange children. It says the reasons for that in two verses, the same thing repeated. Verse 8 and verse 11. It says, they have mouths that speak vanity and the right hand of falsehood. Beware of the strange children. This speaks of things that are not valid on the final day of judgment. They are in between. They could be mixture. They could be demons. They could be pleasant. They could be wonderful. And they could be of truth within them. It depends upon the group. So beware of the false teaching, because there's pride, vanity, and they get off that way. They get your focus not on helping people get to heaven and maintain their walk to get to heaven, but it's about gifting, talent, positions, power, prestige, and then more stuff, more of the wrong thing. False. So we're only passing through. This is it. It's lost its eternal perspective. It's very material. It's very earthly oriented. All right. And one day we won't be here, and the only thing that will last is Christ and Him crucified and the people that are with you on the final day. You need to be aware if you're black, if you're white, if you're brown, if you're mixed. And I got to be aware too. So let's be careful. All right. So people don't want to go to church if they're accused